All right. Well, hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Stormwater Quality here at the City of Oklahoma City. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to the September edition of our 2022 monthly webinar series. Boy, this year just seems to be moving by pretty fast. We will begin the main presentation momentarily, so I wanted to provide some information to help enhance everyone's experience during the presentation today. In order to reduce background noise, we ask that everyone keep themselves muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to type those into chat. I will be monitoring chat for questions, and we will have our guest speakers answer as many questions as we have time for today. If anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, please send me an email to request it. I have put my email address into chat so that way you'll have it handy. Each of the presentations in this webinar series will be available within a week or so after the scheduled webinar date on our website under Stormwater Workshops. And the section where these are posted is called the 2022 webinar series. And of course, this is the September edition. I will post a link to that website where you can find those presentations toward the end of today's program. And of course, if anyone has any time, feel free to type those into chat. But without further ado, I will start the very short welcome presentation for the webinar series.
Good afternoon and welcome to our monthly Stormwater Quality webinar series. We're excited to continue providing monthly opportunities so you can learn how to help keep our local waterways clean. Remember, we're all downstream from someone else, so we all need to work together to protect our waterways. During this series, you will have the opportunity to hear from some of our own stormwater quality staff, as well as several guest speakers. This month's presentation will feature two guest speakers, Trish Morris and Terry Craghead. They will be sharing information on the utilization of compost for erosion control. The webinar series continues with additional topics from stormwater quality and topics from the DEQ, among others. We hope to see you each month, so be sure to tune in. As we've briefly mentioned, each of the presentations will be available online within a week or so after the presentation is aired live. It will be available on the workshop section of our Stormwater Quality website. We'll post a direct link to that page into chat toward the end of today's program. It seems that we're being rather ambitious this year since we've added virtual lunch and learns to the mix. We have already emailed the registration announcement for the final edition of our virtual lunch and learn series. This will be aired live on Wednesday, October 12th at noon. Be sure to check your inbox for that registration announcement. We have recorded each session thus far, and if anyone would like to review the recording, check out our website at www.okc.gov/SWQ and look for the workshops page. We will be posting that link into chat at the end of today's program. Some of the vendors sponsoring these events have new products and tools that you may not have heard of before, so please be sure to tune into these presentations. You could learn something new, which might help streamline your stormwater protection practices. And as always, anytime we provide information regarding specific vendors or products, it is not to be considered an endorsement. We provide the information to help you in your research to determine the best products and services that will benefit your own stormwater program. If you haven't signed up for our newsletters already, please do so now by pointing your phone's camera at the QR code for the newsletter that you're interested in. The only way to sign up for either the construction or industrial training and education newsletters is via a direct website link or these QR codes. These two newsletters are the main way that we announce upcoming training, webinars, and workshops, so be sure to sign up. The third QR code is our quarterly newsletter. It provides overall information about what we're up to. You can find this one on the Gov Delivery website, but not the other two. If you miss any of these codes, be sure to send Rebecca an email and she'll be happy to send you those direct website links. Some of our presentations will be live and some will be pre-recorded. We do our best to provide as much detailed, accurate information as possible while also working with the presenter's strengths and their schedule. We live and work in a beautiful community here in Oklahoma City. For more information about stormwater, what we're up to, and local regulations, be sure to visit our website.
All right, well, today, as I mentioned, we're going to hear from two guest speakers. Trish Morris has been on the forefront of experimenting with innovative technologies in erosion and control management. More than 5 years ago, she began utilizing compost filter socks as an experiment for perimeter control while working to help plan the Oklahoma Compost Conference. Trish was able to find additional uses for compost and learn more about how to set herself apart from other developers in Oklahoma. This has led to several pond bank restoration projects and the use of compost on new planting beds as a method of pest control and water use management. Trish has been invited to speak during the Oklahoma Compost Conference, various stormwater and floodplain events, and was a founding member of Oklahoma Nature Conservancy's Oklahoma City Conservation Leadership Academy, or OCLA. Terry Craighead is a founding member of Fertile Ground, a worker-owned cooperative providing sustainable solutions to reduce the environmental impacts of living and doing business in central Oklahoma. Fertile Ground grew out of an Oklahoma City-based urban agriculture and composting project that Terry co-founded in 2010, Commonwealth Urban Farms. Terry is passionate about environmental sustainability, worker cooperatives, and building a resilient composting infrastructure in Oklahoma. Terry also coordinates the Joy Mennonite Community Garden Compost Conference and serves on the Green Team for the Oklahoma City Festival of the Arts. Again, if anyone has any questions during today's presentation, be sure to type them into chat. At this time, I think, Terry, you're going to share your screen first. Please go ahead.
All right, let's get this thing going. Can you still see everything okay?
It's loading, it says.
Okay. Let me know when it pulls up. Here, I'll try it a different way. Let's just do this. Can you see that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. We'll just do that.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Terry Craighead with Fertile Ground. I appreciate your time and attention today. It's 1 o'clock. Hope everybody had a good lunch. Yeah, excited to talk about compost. Compost is really important for a lot of reasons. And today we're going to talk about a few of those. Let's see if I can figure this out. There we go. So like we said, I'm with Fertile Ground Cooperative, and our mission is to improve and protect the natural environment in Oklahoma. And we do that through recycling services. We do household recycling, but also for offices. And we do organics recycling, so composting. And we haul that material and then we compost it ourselves. And in addition to composting, we, through our work with Trish in the Oklahoma Compost Conference, realized there are other ways to utilize compost. And construction is a big market and a big way for us to make an impact recycling organic waste in central Oklahoma, where currently most of that organic waste is going to the landfill, where it's wasting a resource, it's wasting economic activity, it's leading to depletion of our sales taxes and our property taxes by filling up the landfills faster. But it also adds to the global warming potential of methane release that's caused by throwing organic materials into the landfill. So we're really interested in both diverting organic materials from landfills, but also using that organic material, not just preventing methane production, but also then using that compost, whether that's in top dressing for lawns or garden beds, or in applications we're going to talk about today on construction sites, using compost filter socks, compost berms, and compost blankets. Trish is going to be talking about those in depth a little bit later. This is just, I'm not trying to sell you Compost Socks right now. I just want you to know that we do it. Compost filter socks became, an opportunity for us both to grow our business, but also to really grow the infrastructure for compost in Oklahoma. Our kind of running theory with the compost conferences, if we can expand the markets for compost to be used, then we can divert more material from the landfill and improve our environment in Oklahoma. So what is compost? I'm going to let you read that. So compost is biodegradation of organic materials through a controlled process, utilizing heat, air, moisture, and you end up with this soil amendment that does so much for our environment. Some of the benefits of compost. Once again, read this list. So compost, typically people think, oh, compost is just a fertilizer. Compost is really not a great fertilizer. There are some nutrients in compost, but the benefits of compost are, manifold, and you see them here. For our purposes, compost increases soil infiltration rates. When you're adding that organic material to landscapes, you're allowing water to percolate into the soil. I don't know if you all have seen graphs comparing water infiltration of compacted soils versus natural soils. But it's not even close that in compacted soils, in urban environments and construction environments, most of the water is running off of the site rather than infiltrating into the soil. So compost can be used for turning around that negative process of our construction activities, reducing runoff, protecting our streams from soil erosion, sedimentation, and the hydrocarbon pollutants, the nutrient pollutants. Compost is really this multifaceted soil amendment that solves a lot of problems. It saves money because it allows for seeds to germinate. When you're trying to get vegetation established, you're basically putting a sponge down on the ground, and those seeds need to stay moist and they need to stay in place. And compost, being a sponge, helps more of your seeds germinate. You don't have to add fertilizers. We're trying to protect our waterways, and yet we're speccing that we have to use fertilizers to get seeds to germinate and to establish vegetation. We could just be using compost, which does both. It provides some nutrients, but it provides an environment for these seeds to germinate and for vegetation to be established. And you can see, there are a lot of benefits. Lower cost overall for projects is a huge benefit of using compost. So we're really hoping that the more and more folks become familiar with the ways of using compost and the multifaceted benefits of using compost. When oh gosh, man, that's going to cost me less over time. Oh gosh, it's actually going to do the environmental protection that we're trying to do. That these benefits, like you will hear from Trish, they become just like obvious in our construction practices and in our everyday practices as citizens at home and in our municipalities as well. I wanted to mention that there's been a lot of research done on compost and its use for protecting our waterways. But here in Oklahoma, we have the benefit of having, you know, a renowned researcher in Jason Vogel with the Oklahoma Water Survey. And Jason had this interesting question about compost because he thought, you know, there's nutrients in compost. And so logically, it seems like if we're using nutrient-laden compost in areas where there are water bodies with nutrient problems, TMDL requirement areas, that maybe the compost is leaching nutrients, particularly phosphorus and nitrogen, into these streams, into these water bodies. So he wanted to test compost filter socks because they're starting to become used in Oklahoma. They've been used in other places for much longer. But Jason really didn't absolutely trust all of the research that's been done on compost filter socks due to kind of the nature of one of the lead researchers working for a company that makes the product. So he wanted to do objective research on the nutrient leaching. So ODOT actually put out a request for research in 2020, and the Water Survey ended up doing that research. They presented yesterday at the Oklahoma Floodplain Managers Association, Grant Graves that works with Dr. Vogel, and their final report will be due out at the end of October of 2022, next month. So here's like the abstract. I'm not gonna pause on this. I just want you to see that it's real research. They've gone through like a very extensive process to come up with a methodology for testing both the sediment removal capacity of compost filter socks, but also what are the impacts of nutrient leaching while using compost filter socks. So they have these two small units that they use to run water through the sock. They load the bins at the top with a mixture of soil, water, and dissolved nutrients. And then they use a compost sock at the bottom to allow the water to filter through. And they've developed a method so that you don't have water leaking in the corners or around the edges. But they've come up with this process, but also they've done field research, and this is out near I-235 in Oklahoma City, where they were testing our socks in the field. And the initial results, what they reported yesterday at the OFMA conference, is that the compost filter socks are not leaching phosphorus in all soil types. They are performing well. They have high levels of sediment removal among the various soil types, and then there's a negligible amount of nitrogen that's doesn't appear to be significant. So they are currently working on developing basically a guide for how to use compost filter socks on construction sites, which will include information about spacing the socks, what diameter of socks should you use on which slope grades. And I think it's going to be a super useful tool for all of us in Oklahoma. It's something we can be proud of, like we've contributed to the research community. It's been quite a process, but really excited to have the results out there and published. So I think that is what I had to share, and I appreciate your time. Again, questions we'll answer at the end, but I'm going to stop sharing, and Trish, I'll let you share.
All right, thanks, Terry. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yes.
Sweet, okay. And we will go to my window. All right. Can everybody see that fine?
Yes.
Good. Awesome. So like Terry alluded to in the beginning is we've had several options we've tested in Oklahoma in regards to using compost in construction. The three that we've used and seen successful have been Compost Socks, Compost Blankets, and also Compost Berms. So to start with Compost Socks, the best thing about them, they're super low maintenance. I don't know how many of you have used silt fence as perimeter control over the years, but it's terribly labor intensive, one, to install it, and two, to maintain it. I mean, Oklahoma is windy and it's sunny, and that and silt fence do not mix. Compost socks are aesthetically pleasing. I feel like Terry has done a great job of coming up with various colors. So that also helps if you want to use green or black, or just anything that makes it look a little bit better out there. They're stackable, so if you do reach your your silt has reached a rate at which you need to replace the sock, instead of replacing, you could always stack. So then you keep that extra filtration there, and you're not having to do a bunch of extra work. Sock does not need to be trenched in. It adapts to terrain. So instead of trenching like you would with silt fence or with the hay wattle, you just lay the sock down and stake it in. And the nice thing about compost sock is as it sits, it gets heavier. So it's not going to move around as easy as your silt fence or your hay wattles. It's going to actually gain some weight. It also gains weight because it starts to trap sediment, and the sediment helps weigh it down. And then the great thing about too is we also repurpose those socks. Instead of pulling them up and throwing them in the trash as a whole, we do try to see if they're cut open, and the only thing we're throwing away is the outside wrapper. The compost can be spread and repurposed on the soil. So compost socks reduce stormwater runoff velocity. So it acts just like triangle silt dike. It's meant there to put a bump in the road. So the sediment can settle out and be trapped. So it's either trapped behind the sock or within the sock. And then that allows both sediment and metals and also oils to be filtered out. It's cost effective for the volume of water that runoff is treated. And again, it's cost effective. It may look more expensive up front, which it is over silt fence, but the amount that you spend in maintaining it is much lower and less time consuming. Like I said, it absorbs contaminants, including but not limited to oils and gasoline. I don't know if it's been tested for like fertilizers that we don't want going into the waterway, but I know for sure we have seen it tested for oils and gasoline. And it also acts as a barrier against the development of erosion rills. Again, slowing down the water before it hits a slope will prevent that rilling that you see oftentimes on a slope. This is two different ways we are currently using compost sock. So the first is as perimeter control. So if you look there on your right, that is how we use those as perimeter control. One of the things this doesn't show is there is an alternative installation method. Instead of staking down the middle of the sock, if you're going to be there a long time, you could also alternate staking on the outside of the sock, so you don't end up putting a hole in that sock, and that could prolong the life of the sock. The other thing that we have been testing quite frequently this year, I feel like with Terry, is the use of compost socks as inlet protection. We have not had luck with many other protection methods. We've tried silt dike, and we've tried rock bags, and we've tried filter mat, and either they just get beat up real fast, or like silt dike, you'd have to nail them to the asphalt or to the gutter, or try to glue them. The sock, we are finding that it actually does pretty well in the inlets as long as you use a bigger diameter sock. Contractors tend to avoid it because they don't want to run over it with their pickups. It is a little larger, and it does actually hold up pretty well to being ran over versus the other products. Here's several examples of sock. We've used sock to protect, stacked up to protect some projects. There on the left is a biofiltration system that we were trying to get installed, and rain was coming, so we went ahead and protected it until we could get in there and finish that. And there on your right is just silt fence, or this is a perimeter control, so this is in replacement of silt fence. So obviously there is looks a lot nicer than silt fence. And that didn't, I mean, I think that compost sock sat there for several years before we moved it. The next thing we've used and we've been pretty successful, and we've tweaked it over the years, is the use of compost blankets. So this is actually a pond bank out in Norman in a neighborhood called Greenleaf Trails. It's owned by Ideal Homes. This pond bank, I think, stayed like this for several years. And as an experiment, we went ahead and added a compost blanket. So we tilled that compost in, we graded this back out flat. And so we did that. And then we went ahead and added seed to that, and then gave it about 2 weeks, and I revisited. So that's, as Terry talked about, compost just giving, it's almost like an outlet for that seed to want to germinate. It does keep the ground a little warmer. It holds in moisture so that it just creates like a little incubation area for that seed to germinate and thrive in. So this is 2 weeks. And then this is it's a different angle, but this is 1 month after install. It was kind of hard to get a better picture of that area. And then I don't have pictures of the recent stuff, but we did go back in this year, put in irrigation for that pond bank, and just touched up some spots. It wasn't terrible. I think it had been 4 or 5 years, we just had to touch up a couple rilling areas that it just had. This was a really rocky slope, and so the compost had done its job. We just needed to do a better job of keeping it wet, and the area looks great now. It's the landscapers don't complain about mowing it anymore, so that's always a plus. So the benefits of compost blankets. The application rate ranges obviously based on what you're using it for, the slope, and also the soil type. So anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 2 inch application to reduce runoff. It'll reduce the formation of ruts because it increases the soil's ability to absorb rainfall. So we always talk about absorbing that splash. So this is basically your splash absorber. And so installing those blankets prevents that rilling and improves poor soil health. So it gives desirable vegetation the nutrients it needs to grow quickly. I will point out that compost has been used to eradicate invasive weeds and also other pests. So we really want the healthy native vegetation to come in because that is what reduces runoff of sediment and other pollutants. Native plants have been proven to be more beneficial in that way. We also increase the water holding capacity of the soil, and it lowers the dependence on irrigation in some cases as much as 30%. So while working with Ideal Homes, we did some planter beds in a neighborhood called Northbrook. It's located at Northwest 150th and Rockwell. We actually put in those planting beds at the same time as we put planting beds over in another neighborhood called Native Plains, which is over on Penn and Southwest 164th. And the difference in the bed's appearance within a year was like striking. We used way more water in Native Plains, and the beds just looked puny. And then Northbrook, the beds were really like overly grown and luscious, and they actually used about 30% less water. So if you're looking for a way to even reduce your water usage, compost is a great way to do that. And like I said, it aids in the growth of native species. And it's a great way to control the growth of invasive species that we don't want. One of the researchers that we followed quite closely in the beginning was Britt Fawcett. He spoke, I think, at the first compost conference, and he works for Filtrex International, and he is a renowned researcher in compost. He's peer reviewed. So he has said that a 2-inch blanket on a 3-to-1 slope with 4 inches of rain in 2 hours, the runoff volume when tested against an untreated slope reduced the runoff volume by 90%, which is astronomical when you think about just Thunderbird, what that sediment load could do to something that's already impaired like Thunderbird. Peak runoff was reduced by 79%, sediment by 96%, and the total nitrogen and phosphorus were reduced by 99%. And I feel like Dr. Vogel's research is going to support much of what we have seen from Britt. The last one has not been used a lot just because we don't have all the machines available to us. We have tried doing compost berms, but using a traditional berm installation method. Again, it easily adapts to the terrain. They're aesthetically pleasing because you can grow sod, or you could plant native species all over it and let it grow, or they are very low maintenance again. So the theme of compost is that it becomes, you reduce your maintenance, any compost that you use. Again, this is just one method of putting in a berm. This berm detail is used with a machine, obviously. This is not a hand dug berm or hand built berm, but this is what you will see oftentimes along the roads in California. Caltrans is real big on compost berms. I've seen them used out there quite frequently. They're becoming, I think, a fan favorite over using hay wattle or anything out there, because it just makes some tiered gardening on those steep slopes along those roads. So there's the two ways that they suggest compost berms being installed. Like I said, I've never had access to any of these cool machines, so we've always done them by hand. But I have watched videos from Caltrans using that pneumatic blower. It's pretty cool. Like I said, you could probably go on their website and see what they're doing with compost. I think that they are on the forefront of some of the roadway stuff, and it's kind of cool to watch. And hopefully we can follow suit in Oklahoma. So like I said, when you do these compost berms on a site, you see that slope is pretty steep. And this just becomes just a really cool tiered looking erosion control method. If you wanted to get fancy, you could plant some native species on each berm and then sod in between and really make that look pretty cool. And this is a great method. California is in a drought, a pretty severe drought. So compost, I think, has really become super important for them, because the watering restrictions currently are just crazy. And so you're not having to water this compost as frequently, and the seed germination rate is quite high. So berms, like I said, they grow vegetation quickly. On the slopes, they can be placed 1.5 to 2 times the distance apart as fiber rolls. So that would save time and money when you think about it in the long run. Fiber rolls don't last very long, and so you're reinstalling those, whereas compost berms, again, you're not using as many, might be more expensive up front, but you're not touching them. And they're really meant to only disrupt the flow and not stop it. So every method with compost is really a disruption of that flow, which is always, to me, is the goal of sediment control, is to just stop the flow or stop the splash, because that's what carries that sediment to the next location or downstream. So if you're downstream, or like Rebecca says, we're downstream from somebody, or we're upstream from somebody. So you always have to consider your neighbor. So these are great methods to consider your neighbor. Also, berms give sediment and other pollutants a chance to settle out of the flow. And like I said, they are easily turned into a garden terrace. So it's kind of a cool method. I think this would be really cool to see maybe some neighborhood gardens, turned into this stuff turned into like a neighborhood garden or a community garden. You can talk about how it's like full circle. So that would be really cool to see if somebody ever decided to go down that road. And again, if you decide to ever spread it out, you just spread it. You spread it out when you're done, if you so choose, or you leave the berms up and let it grow and just keep doing its thing. The thing with compost, I think, that we've talked about most is that the reason why it's making its way, I feel like, into stormwater in Oklahoma is because we've made it safe for developers and contractors to test new products. So like Oklahoma City Stormwater and Norman and Midwest City have always made it safe, at least for myself, to come in and say, hey, I'm going to test this, and it might fail, but if it does, I'll replace it. And they've always been on board with us testing these new products. Compost has been on the forefront of that testing. For the last 5 years, we've tried a couple things and it's failed. And we've tried other things and they've done great. And one of them definitely is all the playing that we've done with the sock that Fertile Ground makes. I feel like it's probably the best sock on the market. I've never seen anything perform like it. And it's because we were allowed to test it in the field and see what worked and what didn't. I feel like if we continue the partnership that we have with the stormwater community and contractors and developers, if you guys see a better way, like, we're always open to doing better. So if it's it's easy to get in this stuck. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's why you still see silt fence spec'd on so many jobs, because if it's not broke, why fix it? And let's just be honest. I mean, it's ugly and it's it has a place, but it's not as user friendly, I think, as we thought in the beginning. And then I think too, it's a huge thing is keep track of the resources you use. A lot of your vendors are willing to come on site and walk you through where you went wrong. Terry's super great about that, coming out and talking. Jason over at Triangular Silt Dike, I mean, if you failed miserably, he's going to come out and tell you, hey, this is what you did wrong. Here's how we fix it. And a lot of your stormwater people are very knowledgeable in the products, and they could tell you, like, who can I call? I just don't have, I'm out of ideas. Talk to people. It's never bad to just keep trying. That's the whole goal, is if you fail, like, we just want everybody to keep trying to make it right. Because the best inventions come from failures. So if we just keep working together, I think we'll just keep getting better. And using compost may seem a little overwhelming. This is my son, Hayden. He loves compost and butterflies. But just like Hayden, you just have to take it one bite at a time. So this is the project we did at our house. That's probably 6-7 years ago. And he spent 5 days playing in the compost mounds in our yard. And he loves it. So just remember, if he can play with compost, I mean, at 4 or 5 years old, I think anybody could play with it too. So we've got a couple opportunities coming in the very near future if you want to learn more. The first is the Oklahoma Compost Conference. That'll be October 6th at the Will Rogers Gardens from 8 to 4. I think the early bird registration ends here in a couple days. The cool thing about this conference this year, as Terry and I have alluded to, erosion is a huge discussion. So Blaine will be out with his erosion demonstrator. It's probably the best demonstration on how erosion works with native plants, against compost, against bare soil. It's the most amazing thing to watch, because it really puts it into perspective for you. The other thing I saw cool on the schedule is the use of biochar with compost. So that's a product that not many people in Oklahoma have a lot of experience with. So I really feel like this is going to be a really cool conference. And then also on the 24th at 10 a.m., the farmers market at Scissortail Park will do how to build a worm bin. So if you've always wanted to get into composting, but you're not quite sure, one of the cool ways is using worms. And so if you are interested in that, not sure if there's any seats left, but if you head over to the farmers market, I'm sure they will have people standing around wanting to answer your questions on how you could get your own compost bin started. And the cool thing is you can go on Amazon and they sell compost bins galore. So if you're just looking to get into it, I think they're like $100 and they're super easy to use. And then if you have any other questions about compost use in construction or in erosion control or just in your garden, you can contact myself or Cherry with questions. Both of us have used, I think, it for just about everything. I currently use it in all my butterfly gardens at my house, and it helps get that milkweed getting going for the fall. So if you guys have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to us. And that is all I have.
Great. Oh, you could left that slide up for just a little bit longer if you don't mind, with your
Sure.
contact information.
Yeah,
Just in case people need to grab that. We did have a couple of questions, and I posted a couple of things into chat as well. So Wayne asks, is locally produced compost available in packaged form or just in bulk?
I do know you can buy zoo poo in package form. And I believe, I want to say Oklahoma, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, I know Midwest City was moving to packaging their compost, but I don't know if they have yet.
Yeah, they're still working on their process. The only bagging operation that I know of is at Markham's Nursery. They make their own compost, and then they bag that up and sell it. Bagging is nice. It makes it easier to move, but you pay a little bit more when you put it in a bag, but there's a convenience factor there.
And then where is it available in bulk?
In bulk, you can buy it from Fertile Ground, from us. We've just moved locations for everybody. We've been located downtown at 5th and Blackwilder, and we've just moved to the south side of the river, 2228 South Santa Fe. But we sell compost, and you can get compost from Murphy Products in Stockyards, Minnick Materials. They've got locations all around the metro. Like I said, Markham's, Midwest City, they have their biosolids yard waste compost. City of Norman has compost kind of sporadically. Oh, and Prairie Dirt Solutions. They're a newer composting facility, and they're located. Compost sales are near Britton and Kelly.
Great, thank you. And then Walt asks if we can send him a list of vendors. So if you could send that to me, maybe of some of those compost vendors and maybe where you can get the socks, that would be great. And I'll get that over to Walt. And then just I posted the compost conference link into chat. And then I did Google Caltrans compost control toolbox, and they have a lot of resources there. So I did post that into chat. That should be a valuable tool for folks. And then I saw your slide, so I Googled the farmers market at Scissortail Park, and so I posted that link there in case someone else wanted to attend that. And then I also mentioned myself that the compost socks are used during the Festival of the Arts downtown in Oklahoma City to protect storm drains. And so that's just kind of if you guys are wanting to see them in action and you don't want to go to a construction site, just come to the Festival of the Arts next spring, and you'll be able to see those around those drains there. So let's see if there's any other questions. Don't think so. All right. Well, I will. Oh, we have another one. Sorry, it just popped up. Wayne asks, are tackifiers ever used to stabilize berm surfaces?
I have not seen the need for a tackifier on a berm because compost, if it's used properly, would just need seed mixed with it, and then it should be just fine. So I've not used a tackifier with compost, no.
The little bit of research that I've done related to tackifiers is when those are used on the compost, it solidifies that berm, and instead of water like moving through the material, it tends to pond behind it, and then that does provide better sediment removal. But depending on your slope and your sheet flow, like you may have a hydraulic force that would move that berm. But that's just an intuition. I don't have any research related to that.
And that Caltrans toolbox may refer to why you wouldn't. So I know that they've done a bunch of research. They may have some more in there based on like why you don't do certain things with those berms or why you should. So I would check that toolbox out for sure. That's usually where I go if I have a question.
Out for just a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. It's a great presentation and such interesting, helpful information. So appreciate you guys for that. As a reminder, if anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's presentation, please send me an email to request it. We ask that you don't request certificates in chat, because we may not have your email address linked to your username on Teams, and I should be able to get the certificates out this week. I did post that into chat again, so everybody will have it handy. And as I've mentioned, a recording of today's presentation will be available on our website in the next week or so, and I will put that website into chat right now. We did have another question pop up. Wayne asks, what is the cost of the bulk compost per cubic foot or cubic yard, if you know either of those?
Yeah, so the compost price varies across town. It depends on how much volume you purchase really at each location. Probably the lowest cost compost you're going to find is the Midwest City Biosolids yard waste compost. That and when Norman has compost available, they have a low cost compost as well. Other composts are around the $40 per cubic yard retail rate. I'd say there's a range between $20 to $50 a cubic yard based on type of compost and volume of compost purchased.
Great. So keep those questions coming. We will continue hanging out here, but thank you all for attending today's session. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Hope to see you again next month, October 19th at 1 p.m. for the next installment in the Stormwater Webinar Series. The presentation will be provided by the DEQ covering the OKR10 and the upcoming changes with that permit reissuance. Again, we're going to hang out here for just another minute or two. Let us know if you have any questions. Other than that, have a great afternoon.